Hey friends, welcome to Produce is People, the podcast with Nate Montgomery, the produce champion. I hope you enjoy the show. Make sure that you listen to it, make sure you share it, and make sure that you tell us what you think about it. Hey friends, Nate Montgomery, the produce champion. Welcome to this episode of Produce is People. I've got a very special guest with me. I know I say that about every guest, but if they weren't special, they wouldn't be here. I have my brother-in-law, Bryan Jones. As you know, my wife owns a company, and I work for her. And Bryan is her brother. And I wanted to bring him on because even though he's not currently in the produce industry, I think he's got some great insights. And so, Bryan, welcome to the show. I'm glad that you're here.
It's good to be here. Appreciate it.
So, Bryan, you have been in sales now for 40 plus years?
41 years.
Yeah. And currently you're involved in more of the financial side of the world in sales, right?
Yes, I'm a mortgage lender.
Yeah, mortgage lender for a number of years. In fact, one of the reasons that I ended up moving to Yakima was because of this man right here. And I actually started mortgages when I moved to Yakima. But then, as I always say, Jesus saved me and brought me into the produce world. So, but Bryan, I wanted to bring you on because over the years we've talked about a lot of different things, but you've been very successful throughout your career in sales, and you have all kinds of insight that you could share with us about sales specifically, and maybe we can delve into that a little bit. But your initial career started in the produce department.
Absolutely, at 16 years of age.
So at 16 years, what was that like? And tell me a little bit about life as a produce clerk? Is that what it was called? Or
so I started off as just what they would call just a courtesy clerk. Okay, in the in the grocery realm. Mm-hmm. And local company here that you sell food to, raised Chalet Thriftway. Yep. 16 years old, had a brother that worked there. I decided I wanted to work there also, and as I moved through the ranks, I realized that I didn't want to just stay as a courtesy clerk. Even though I very much enjoyed the activity, I was a person that always felt like that if I was going to have a job, I had to have a physical job.
You've always seemed like a people person, so you probably enjoyed that aspect of it.
Oh, I loved every aspect of it. Yeah. And so at 16 years of age, when the produce opportunity came into play to be an assistant, I thought, well, that's something new that I want to learn. And already had a love for fruit. So to understand about fruit and vegetables and how, not only where they came from the farmer to the store, and from the store actually to the client, but what it did is allowed me to learn how to sell at a very young age.
Sure. So what was a normal day like in the produce department? I mean, is it just sweeping and mopping? Is it swapping out boxes? What was it like?
Come in early in the morning. First thing you do is you check the rack, and you make sure that the rack is nice and fresh, fluffed up, and that if you have any rotten vegetables, you cull through everything throughout the course of the morning. That's the first thing you did.
So nowadays, you go to a produce department, and we don't have to malign any one store or not, but it seems like those aspects are not commonplace anymore.
Well, let's put it to you this way. When I go into a produce department, I feel like today I can do a better job than what I see.
If only they would pay what you need to pay, right?
That's exactly right.
And I think that's probably part of the challenge, is to get the right person in there that cares about the product, that is going to pay attention to the details. To get somebody like that, the cost is huge, right? And so they want to get somebody in there, probably minimum wage, probably not even full time, and rotate a couple people through there. Right. I would imagine. I mean, I don't know. I'm not the HR department, but that would seem that way, right?
Right. From an aspect of sales, though, in a produce department, you have such an opportunity to market items in such a way to where your produce gross margin can really increase. For example, when we had Associated Grocers is who we were under at the time. Mm-hmm. When we had bananas, and I remember when bananas were 4 pounds for $1. Wow. Okay, you could buy. They'd come in the ad on Wednesday, and bananas were 4 pounds for $1. So instead of putting bananas in the front of the store, because as you know, the way they do the flow of stores, you come in, you walk through the produce department, and instead of taking those bananas and putting them at the front, we put them at the back.
Make everybody walk through everything else.
Well, the reason we would do that is because if you didn't know bananas were 4 pounds for $1, it was a loss leader for the week, right? If you didn't know 4 pounds for $1 bananas were on the sale, we don't want you buying them, right? Because we're a loss leader. We want to maximize our net profit. And so that's the kind of the merchandising I learned at a very young age. And when onions were 3 pounds for $1, if you came in, you know, and AG would put 3 pounds for $1 for onions, we would just put 33 cents.
Okay.
Yeah. The reason being, because if you wanted 1 onion, we don't want you buying 3 pounds.
Yeah.
Right?
Talk about food waste.
That's right, because it's another loss leader. But you don't see that today.
Yeah.
In today's world of bulk this and bulk that, you know, we get a lot of waste and a lot of loss.
I think we're going to see a change because of inflation and all that. I think we're going to see a change in that, in the sense that, you know, we used to complain about going to one of the big box stores or some of these wholesale stores and buying, you know, the bag with 9 heads of lettuce, and you know that half of them are going to go to the garbage. It seems like that whole thing is getting reduced. I don't know.
Yeah.
But okay, so tell me about your interaction with the customers. And you mentioned you got some recognition. Your store did, at least at the time.
We did.
Why was that?
So we ran our produce department like Pike's Place Market.
You throwing fish and everything?
Well, we would darn near throw fruit, okay? But we were very exuberant in the way we interacted with the clients. The clients, when they came in, we knew their names. And if we didn't, we did our very best to know them. So the Ray's Chalet Thriftway became a place where people, they felt like it was home to them to come shop. Yeah. And one of the things in which we would do to really, we sold produce on a daily basis. If we had local fruit come in, local corn, we would shuck the corn in front of the people and hand it to them raw and say, you got to try this corn. Corn right now is just fresh. It came from Rasmussen's, and it just came in this morning. And we would sell that product, because not only did that bode well for us, but it bode well for the local farmer.
Sure.
And so we got plenty of recognition in that, just the way we ran that department.
And at some point, was there like a national, I think there was some national recognition of the volume or something like that?
Yeah.
It wasn't just your good looks?
It wasn't our good looks. No. But statewide, we were known as the #1 grocery produce department in the AG chain in the state of Washington.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
A little town like Yakima, it's not the thriving metropolis of Seattle or something like that, and yet to have that kind of recognition, that means a lot. And it strikes me as interesting that many of the grocery stores, the retail stores where you go, where they're turning over the product, where they're buying, where they're offering, you know, top quality, man, that stuff flies off the shelves. And then the ones that try to minimize or buy, shall we say, cheap, then you can see that in the shelves, and usually it's stuff that's not moving.
Yeah.
It's not looking good.
Yeah.
And so,
you know, I walk in the produce department now, and I just feel like the person working there is just, they don't want to be there. And our department was definitely not that type of atmosphere. And so my suggestion to anybody listening right now from a sales standpoint, love what you do.
Yeah.
You have to love what you do and be passionate about what you're doing, no matter what it is. You know, the scriptures tell us that everything that we do, we should do unto the Lord, right? And so if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it unto the Lord, not just for the fact that I got to get up and go to work, but I'm going to give everything that I have of what God has instilled inside of me. And I want to be a learner of the day. You know, I want to learn. I want to be able to understand, you know, what the farmer is actually going through. And I love that about what you do. You're able to take, you know, blackberries and move them from one portion of our region into the local store. Yeah. And by the grace of God, that you're not ultimately restricted to do that at this point in time in history, you know. Yeah. But that may come a day where you can't even do that, right?
Yeah. Well, there certainly is a whole lot of other levels of paperwork and certifications and all of that go into it that didn't happen back in your day.
Precisely.
But I think you know, people, I always say produce is people. The people of produce, there's a lot of similarities still today with those from before. One of the things that I talk a lot about, Bryan, is the life lessons from produce. I talk about the 7 laws of harvest and how there are things that we can learn from produce for our everyday life, like you reap what you sow. Different lessons like that you reap in proportion to what you sow, those kinds of things. Is there a life lesson, something that you have learned in your interaction with produce that has carried with you through life that you could say, that's something I learned because of or around produce?
Well, number one, what it did for me, it helped me understand where my true gifting was. And as a salesperson, you know, even when you're in a produce department, nobody helps you recognize that you're actually selling, right? If you're doing what you should be doing, you're selling products. So I learned that I was definitely one of these young men that didn't have an idea what he wanted to do in life. It wasn't like I grew up and said, man, I can't wait I'm going to be a police officer. I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that. I struggled in knowing what I was going to be. So I began to realize, and as I prayed into things, the Lord showed me that my skills were already being established within the ranks of the produce department. And so I've been able to take those skills, and not only through the course of my mortgage career, but as you know, I'm an assistant pastor also. And that has allowed me to, you know, what I'm convinced of, I can convince you, right? If I'm convinced of the love of Jesus Christ, and I can convince others that his love exists. And so I would say that that's a major component that I've been able to carry through my life.
Wow. Yeah. And I think, just like you mentioned, it's important to note, we're not born with a career in our hands. And so you went to the produce department, you started as a courtesy clerk, then you go to the produce department, and the skills that you learned there, it wasn't like somebody sat you down and said, let me teach you how to do a mortgage, but it was, you learned how to deal with people, you learned how to treat people, how to treat your employer, all of those things, and then all that translates to a successful career in something unrelated per se. But
everything's a building block, you know, and if you're willing to stay in the game and to choose to learn every day, there's something that you can carry through the course of your life that you're going to look back on your life and go, my goodness, those early years really promoted me as to where I am today. And God uses all of those things, and it's just such a blessing. So I would encourage, especially the younger generation, you know, if you find something that you're going on, this just isn't me, or I don't like it, you know, choose to show up, choose to make a difference, and allow the Lord to use your gifting. Whatever you have in that job, use it to the best of your ability.
Yeah. I was just thinking with this berry project that you mentioned, it's been a challenge. It's been, you know, there is no straight line from 0 to 100, and our grower does everything he possibly can, does everything right, and you know, we say you reap what you sow. He should be reaping a great harvest, but you know, there was sun and there was this and there was that, things completely out of his control, and all of a sudden, from the size of crop that he was expecting, it was cut down to about 25%. But when you talk to him, he's not saying, quit, mow it down, start over. We got to finish this out, and then what are we going to do next, and how are we going to do this better, and the life lessons from there too, that just like you said, you know, we're not born with our career in our hands. So.
Yeah. And you know, one of the perspective I have in terms of produce, it actually allowed me, because I think so often what we do is we don't know where the food comes from, right?
Yeah.
It just shows up on our table. We're so used to going to the store, and there it is, and it's always going to be there. But when you begin to know the farmer that's coming in, that's delivering the apples, the corn, the tomatoes, whatever it might be that you're buying local, you get to hear their struggle. You get to hear how much they're working for their family just to make ends meet. And it creates a greater level of compassion and empathy for them. You know? And so we all have components to the process that we fill just to get that from the farmer to your table.
I was recently talking on another one of our shows, and it's reminded me here. I always say a prayer whenever we have a meal. It's a prayer of gratitude. And as this has progressed, my involvement in produce, my gratitude is not only to God for having the resources to be able to buy the food, and not only for the hands that prepared it, which we all, but you think of the hands that touched it, like you said, to get it from the farm, whether it's a mile away or 1,000 miles away, get it to the rack, get it to our table, get it to our plate.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you think of all the hands that touch that. And
Right.
if we're not grateful, we got problems.
And how graceful God's been along the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, every step of the way.
You know, you asked me about, what I brought through the course of my career and life from produce also. But I got to see, it amazes me the creativity of God. You know, I mean, we eat bananas all the time, apples, oranges. We see all this stuff all the time. But when you start traveling the world and you start seeing unique fruits, like jackfruits, like star fruits, you see these things that they're not grown in our region, and readily for Americans, we don't see them very often. But the creativity of God to think worldwide, the different amounts of fruits is amazing.
Yeah.
It's incredible. So it created this,
the colors, the shapes, the flavors, even the scents. I'm still wanting to try. Not jackfruit. What's the other fruit from Indonesia? Somebody sent me some dried, but that's not it. So we're gonna get sometime. We're gonna get over there to the South Pacific, and we're gonna try some of this fruit. I suddenly went blank on the name of it, but it's green. It kind of looks like jackfruit. It's famous for not smelling very pretty.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
I just don't remember the name.
I just drew a blank. But anyway, you all know what I'm talking about. I've mentioned it before. But yeah, again, it's art. How God made it, how it grows. It's art, how it's prepared. It's art, how we get to eat it. And it's science and engineering on how it gets to us. It's just completely amazing. I absolutely love being involved in the produce world, and the things that I've learned here, they apply to marriage, and they apply to sales, and they apply to business, and like Bryan was saying, even in the everyday life. So, well, Bryan, before we just wrap up, do you have any other thoughts, anything you want to share with us?
I just think about the scripture in Revelations 22, when it's talking about the new Jerusalem that's coming down, and God has, the tree of life is along the riverbanks, and the tree of life is going to produce 12 fruits every month. Now, the Bible doesn't define for us whether or not those 12 fruits are going to be the same 12 fruits, or if they're going to rotate. But here's the creativity of God.
I hope it rotates.
I pray it rotates. But God is so vast, okay? And his creativity is so great that I just have to believe that those fruits are going to rotate. And every month, we're going to get a fruit that we've never had before. And that fruit is going to light up our taste buds. Yeah. And we think about how God has even given us taste buds. He didn't have to give us taste buds.
No,
we could just be like animals, right? And just eat. And taste buds don't really matter. But the reality is he gave us taste buds for our own pleasure. Yeah. And what is it going to be like 1,080 years later? That we're in heaven and we're in the New Jerusalem, and say, Lord, that fruit we had when I was here 110 years into. Can we recycle that one? Can we have that one back? And the Lord's going to go, brother, son, I am beyond.
I remember durian. One of these days, I'm going to try fresh durian. All I have is freeze dried in my house. It's great. I liked it, but I want to experience the durian fruit. But anyway, well, Bryan, thanks so much for being with us. And folks, I say it all the time. In social media, as in produce, if you like it, share it. And so if you like the show, make sure you share it with your friends and family and even your enemies. And if you can follow us on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, and if another platform comes up, we'll probably join that too. We'll see you on the next episode. Thank you so much.
God bless you.
So that's the show, folks. Make sure that you like it, make sure that you share it, and follow us on LinkedIn, on TikTok, on Facebook, on Instagram. We're in all the socials, even on YouTube. Make sure you follow us, share it, and like it.